What's going on, guys? It's your movie guy, Straw Hat Goofy, and today we're going to be talking about the new Pixar animated movie, Turning Red. Now, Turning Red is a film directed by Domee Shi, who also directed the Pixar short that won an Oscar called Bao, which in and of itself is a coming-of-age flick, and you can kind of see that Turning Red is almost a spiritual successor to that. The film follows a little girl named Meilin Lee, who just turned 13, and she's pretty much facing that transformative period that we've all been through, you know, the time where nothing really makes sense. You're starting to get into boys and boy bands, and you're hanging out with friends that you love, but you probably shouldn't be hanging out with, all while suffering from this enormous amount of pressure from her parents to be that perfect little girl that they always knew her to be. Throw in the fact that she turns into a giant red panda whenever her emotions don't get in check. It creates a lot of chaos throughout the film. Now, this was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, mostly because, yes, it's a Pixar film and we're always waiting for that Pixar banger. But what I really like is that this is a coming-of-age flick, and I'm a sucker for those. And Pixar has been doing a really, really good job at coming of age as of late. Obviously, we've had the 2015 film Inside Out, which was a very poignant look at the emotions and the inside look of what coming of age is for Riley, as well as we got a very recent one in Luca. So now when I think of Turning Red, I think I'm going to think of this as the completion to the trifecta of Pixar coming of age flicks. What I really like about this movie is that it looks at coming of age in a way that's not just from childhood to adulthood, but it literally focuses on the coming of age, those changes that comes with the coming of age, right? In the beginning of the film, and as we see in the trailer, Mei Lee is this little girl who really feels like she is an adult already, that she has everything figured out, that she has this big old plan, but obviously when things get a wrench thrown into them, then she realizes that she is 13 and she doesn't really know what's going on. And the movie kind of makes kids feel safe in not knowing what's going on and discovering things about themselves and things about the world. And I feel like that is a very important lesson for kids to learn. Like, a lot of people are saying that this is a giant metaphor for menstruation and femininity, which in and of itself, like, it can be. Like, the jokes are there. I think it would be a lost opportunity if they didn't do that. But it uses the big red panda trope to kind of like symbolize the ugliness that people feel when they're not meeting expectations from people, when they don't look a certain way, the way they're looked at by their peers. I think the red panda is definitely like a way of that, just in a very cutesy way. The film also does a great job of just kind of like laying out support systems, right? Like, she has a loving support system in her friend group that her parents probably think that she shouldn't have, and then the parents are also pulling her in one direction with their support or lack thereof. And again, it's just another example of having this character Mei Lee kind of like make these choices between her parents and between her life that she's made on the outside of that. Now, with all that being said, I didn't really find this to be the most emotional Pixar film, specifically for me, because I don't know, like, I usually choke up a lot during Pixar flicks. I choked up just a little bit. Like, I felt it. The emotional beats are there, but I honestly think that the film is not really trying to give you that third act cry fest that a lot of other Pixar films tend to do. Some would accuse Pixar of being like emotionally manipulative at this point, because you just kind of can tell in time when those waterworks are coming. And I didn't really get that here, because I feel like the movie wasn't necessarily building up to that big dramatic like moment of tears or moment of like, oh my god, like, I'm looking at my life completely different. I will say that the tone of this movie is as perfect as it can be for this film. However, I will also say that this is the funniest Pixar film that I've ever seen, hands down, bar none. Like, that is the tweet. Like, that it is a funny movie, because obviously you have the situational comedy of a little girl turning into a giant red panda, but I feel like they didn't use that trope a lot to the point where it just became a shtick that they linked on. It could have been just so easy to have a bunch of situations where, you know, she's in a situation, her emotions start to get in check, she tries to keep being a panda, and boom, panda's here. But the movie actually went a different direction, which I really appreciated. Also, this movie is set in the 2000s, and I felt like this movie was made for me and any other 90s baby who grew up in what I call the boy band era. I'm talking B2K, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, 98 Degrees. There's that. There's even a band in the film called Four Town. I know they're probably based on like a real band, but I was getting like massive like B2K, like, you know, B2K vibes out of that. And a great part of the movie, and I didn't know this until I was going in, apparently Ludwig Göransson was the composer of this film, and I love, like, he's one of my favorite composers working today. He did the Mandalorian theme. He also worked on the score for Creed and Black Panther. Dude is literally a superstar in this industry. So not only do you have that score working, but Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas also wrote songs for Four Town in this movie, and then to sing those songs you have Jordan Fisher. So it's the music in this film is just already a bop, and that's just the original music in this film. The soundtrack uses things like Destiny's Child, and it was honestly very surprising how much I was like, not in my head in a Pixar film about a girl with a little red panda. So I just gotta say, Turning Red has one of the most goated soundtracks in film. And honestly, it wasn't used in a gimmicky way. Like, it worked perfectly for the film. The voice acting is very top notch. Like, Rosalie Chang as Mei Li kind of carries this film because it's pretty much like from her POV for the most part. But Sandra Oh as her mother Ming Li is like really kind of it's a different role because she's very overprotective, and she has like these moments of just we all have those moments of our parents like doing something like super embarrassing. Let's just take that and let's dial it up to 11. I'm not gonna spoil it, but you should definitely see what this mom gets up to. If you've seen the teaser, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the fact that she does more than that, wow. But Sandra does a really good job of kind of like unpacking the layers behind her overprotectiveness, right? So in those sweet and tender moments, it all starts to make sense. The last thing I want to talk about here is the animation, because I know there was something on Twitter a while back about Pixar dropping in animation quality, and a lot of people didn't like this animation. Again, I think it's very important to know that every Pixar film is different. Like, obviously, we're going to get Lightyear after this, and that animation looks almost not photorealistic, but it looks way different than anything that Pixar has ever done before. And, you know, Inside Out looks very cartoony, but, you know, then you have something like Toy Story 4, which should be cartoony, but it still had these photorealistic elements. So every Pixar film is different, and Turning Red is no different than this. I know that Domi Shi kind of like based a little bit of this off her real life. She grew up in Toronto. She grew up during the early 2000s. And so you can kind of see a lot of like Mei Li. You can see Mei Li and like Domi Shi, or Domi Shi and Mei Li, or however that goes. But there's like elements in animation that totally reflect this as well. Like, I've said this like numerous times. This reminds me a lot of Chinese animation and anime and things of that sort. There's a lot of anime elements. There's even, not going to spoil it, but let's just say the third act is totally an anime. It totally goes into an anime route. So the fact that people are kind of saying that this is different, I think there's something a little bit more behind their dislike for that, which you probably could tell what that is. Not saying it's that. I'm just saying it's a possibility. But honestly, I really dug Turning Red's animation, especially for the story that it was trying to tell, because it's very intentional. It's not just there for style. It's very intentional of why it is this way. But at the end of the day, I really dug Turning Red, guys. I thought it was a very fun film, great soundtrack, great voice performances, and the animation is different, and I feel like that keeps Pixar fresh. Oh, and if you haven't had the chance, listen to Nobody Like You by Four Town on Spotify. I've been jamming that for like a week now. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Make sure you follow me on my other social accounts. And yeah, I think that's the review. You guys take care.